My name is Stephanie Briggs, and I'm an acrylic painter here in West Linn. I mostly paint landscapes this year from parks around West Linn and Lake Oswego, and I also really enjoy painting flowers, so I have a lot of those on display as well. I started painting not until 2018. I actually had sort of a rough year, and I read Brené Brown's work on the elements of like wholehearted living and what it takes to be happy. And one of the things she talked a lot about is creativity and play. So I decided to sign up for a once-a-week painting class, and I guess the rest is history. I started painting, and then I got pregnant and had a baby right before COVID. And the painting class I took moved online during COVID. And so every Tuesday night, I met with a group of painters on Zoom from the Portland area. And that was my night to paint. And I had an infant at the time, but Tuesday nights were always my painting night. So I'd buy a bouquet from New Seasons usually and just paint that every Tuesday. And that's how I built the habit of painting every week. And that got me through COVID. And then in 2022, we moved to West Linn, and I decided I wanted to expand my world a little bit. My kiddo's now 4 years old. And so I started getting out into parks and nature, and now my process is once a week I try to find an excuse to get into the woods somehow, whether it's, drop my kiddo off at preschool and go to Mary S. Young for 20 minutes and just look at the river. I take a photo and then I come back to my house, and on Sunday I try to steal a couple hours to paint it. So actually most of this work, there's a lot of pieces in this show, but I counted and 17 paintings are from 2023. So I try to paint every week. So some of them didn't make the cut, and sometimes it takes me a couple weeks to work on a painting, but most of the works in this show are from this year. The most helpful thing to me, besides having the privilege of having a spouse who is, there and able to hang out with our kiddo while I'm painting, is to have it on my calendar. Like I live and die by my Google Calendar. And so signing up for a class and then eventually just able to respect my calendar. Like Sundays are when I paint, or for a while during COVID, it was Tuesday nights. And no matter what comes up, I take that time. And as a new mom, I had to learn, it's not selfish to take that time. My friend Julia says, she's a much kinder person when she paints and she takes that time, and I found that that's been true for me as well. So having that time on my calendar has been really helpful, and then I sort of line up things around it. So during COVID, I was painting bouquets, so I knew that Tuesday night I needed a flower bouquet from New Seasons or something else to paint. So that would help me actually get to the grocery store on Sundays to sort of prepare. And now that I know that I'm going to paint on Sunday and it's going to be a landscape, that means if it's Thursday morning and I've dropped my kiddo off at preschool, I'm going to take 20 minutes to go outside and try to find, a picture on a walk. Or sometimes it's Sunday morning and I'm going on a walk at 10 a.m. really quick while Paw Patrol plays, just so I can take a picture to go paint later. So knowing that my calendar and that the act of painting is immovable sort of helps me line up everything else before it. The other thing I've learned is what I call my painting chores. And so with acrylic, I often start with a background that's already painted in. So some days if I don't want to paint, I'm like, well, I can take 20 minutes and do my painting chore, so I can paint a background that I can use later. Or I use a stay wet palette, which means I can mix up my colors in advance, which is a huge time saver for me. And so I can do that in the kitchen while my kiddo is eating dinner or playing. And so I've learned to sort of get my painting chores done, have my pictures ready, so that when it's time to show up and paint on Sunday, I don't have to think about it, I don't have to make choices. The other thing that's been really helpful is sort of having these frameworks for what I'm going to paint. And so for a while, I only painted flower bouquets. So I never had to choose what I'm going to paint. I never had to set up a still life. I would just choose whatever the $16.99 bouquet was at New Seasons. And if I didn't like it, maybe I would paint it a little differently or try to go more abstract. But getting rid of the choices and a lot of that creativity freezing was really helpful. And now I know I'm going to paint landscapes. I've been working on that. So it's okay, well, I gotta go find one of my favorite parks or go to a new park. And then that takes rid of the choice of showing up and thinking about, what am I gonna paint? What do I need to paint? Which materials do I need? I sort of take care of all of that so that I can free up the time to create. I started doing plein air work this summer for the first time, and the first couple sessions were really frustrating. And then I found that actually this work up here with the flowers, when I had kind of gone back to my comfort zone of painting flowers, even though it was outside, it went much better. The most inspiring and influential in my art life has been Jo Linn, my painting instructor, Jo Linn Fry in Portland. But I think I'm most inspired by people who aren't doing art full time. So in my community, with my fellow painters, people I see on Instagram, people who are a full-time mom or they have a full-time job and they still find a couple hours on the weekend to go hike in the woods or make something in the evenings after everyone's gone to bed. To me, that's been the most influential thing, and that's what's been able to help me keep going and to build a habit to keep painting. I sort of have shifted from viewing painting as this thing I do when I get inspired to more like a workout habit where I try to show up every week, even if I don't feel like it, and just see what happens. And so when I see people who are, even if it's not art related, but they are going on hikes every weekend or they make time to play video games, I'm like, I can try to do that with art, and that's been really inspiring to me. So lately I found a lot of peace in the mornings after I take my kiddo to preschool and before I start work. And so one of the things that I've liked to do is go on a walk at Mary S. Young Park. And so this painting called Morning at Mary S. Young could also be called Peace Right After Preschool Drop-Off. And I really like this painting because the sun is in the sky. I think it captures the energy of what it feels like there. And it was also one of the first landscapes I did where I went bigger than what I had been doing before. And I felt like I was able to capture a lot more detail. It feels successful in capturing what I wanted to capture, which is that sense of calm and beauty.
What I really like about the piece is the non-traditional sunrays.
Yeah.
So, it's not this orb in the sky. It's affected, like, there is a cloud quality to the sky, which is really nice. And very distinguishable because sometimes relaying clouds is very hard when you're pairing it with water because it can really become the same. So that's what I really like about it. I just want to mention
Thank you. Yeah, I always have to do the clouds first and get the sky right. Whenever I paint until the sky gets right, and then I can paint the rest in. Because you're right, like the sky is the most difficult part for me. So it's like I just iterate until it's good enough, and then I stop, and then I can paint everything else. This painting of white ranunculus I like a lot because white flowers are traditionally super difficult to paint. And I really worked hard with the underpainting to add a lot of dark shadows so that I could pull in bright whites on top. And I was able to use some of my background in watercolor painting with this as well. And so I feel like it highlights some of my skills and the things I enjoy about watercolor in acrylic painting. An underpainting is sort of the bones of the painting, and often I'd use brown or black to paint it in. So what I'll do is I'll paint in a background, a bright color, usually red or whatever is left over from my painting from the week before. And then on top of that, I'll add an underpainting, which is basically the structure of what the painting is going to look like. And I'll make the dark parts extra dark and the light parts a little lighter. With one color, and then after that I'll come in with the actual color palette for the painting and add that over the top. So it sort of goes background, solid color, and then the bones of the painting is the underpainting, and that's the structure, and that's where I can sort of play around with. If I make mistakes, I can do it over again, draw it differently, and then the color is the last step. So this painting of George Rogers has extra sentimental value to me because it was a big landscape that I did that I was super proud of. Then one day when my husband was out of town, my son decided that I forgot to put a sun in the painting, and he put yellow paint all over the painting everywhere to help me add a sun. And so I was able to sort of scrape it and give the whole painting a yellow tone, but this piece is important to me because it was a collaboration with my son, who was 3 at the time. I think art is important, obviously, in the way that it can do big things and give people ideas when people consume art. But what I'm learning, especially in my late 30s, is that art and creativity is really important from a creation perspective as well, and creativity. And the people I know who are making things, who are producing art, or who are really playful with their kids and getting deep into stories and fort making, or who play video games and explore different worlds and tell stories via that, are just much happier people. They're more fun to be around, they enjoy life more. And so I think art and creativity is really important from developing our sense of self and the way that we are and the way that we interact with the world. And especially, I work in digital marketing, and so I see a lot of people, just watching TV or consuming Instagram or TikTok, and it's so easy to sit back and just sort of take in other people's work. But I find that the people who are making something in some way, or exploring, or who are more playful with art, tend to be happier and have more fulfilled lives, at least from what I've seen. And so I think that's one of the reasons that art is so important. I am really grateful to my husband, Justin, and my son, Emmett, for giving me the time and space to help me paint every week, and to Jolynn Fry and the community at Alna and Radius Studio in Portland, and also to my neighbors on Renaissance Court, who have really helped me see the benefit of getting outside every day, and who've given me a sense of community when we moved here to West Linn.